Welcome to the Deep Dive.
It's good to be here.
Today we are taking you inside a really intense and very compressed series of events.
Yeah, we're talking about a period of just a few weeks.
And it's all centered on on the surface, very placid English landscape.
Right.
We're in Sussex.
Right. You have these familiar places, Brighton, Worthing, but at the heart of it is this very, very strange manor.
Runhill Court.
Runhill Court. And it involves this entanglement between a young woman, Isabel Lomant,
Her fiancé, Marshall Stokes.
and the owner of this house, a man named Judge, a very dignified but also, as we'll see, a very secretive man.
And the account we're working from, it's not just a story. It reads like a detailed history.
It does. It feels like a catalog of almost a spiritual catastrophe. It's this deep study in how conventional life, the life we all think we know,
That's right, the day-to-day.
is just completely insufficient when it's confronted by something raw, something undeniable, but also something unseen.
So our mission here for you is to treat every single part of this as a real, tangible event.
Exactly. We're going to explore every character's raw emotion, every bizarre thing that happens. And we're not just going to say that it happened. We're going to try to understand why it happened to these specific people.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The whole thing kicks off in mid-September. The weather is beautiful, a little misty, but bright.
And we begin with Marshall Stokes, the fiancé.
He's returning from a fortnight's trip to New York.
And his profession is important, isn't it? He's an underwriting member of Lloyd's.
Which tells you everything. This is a man who deals in caution, in calculation, in measurable risk.
Absolutely. And the trip to America wasn't a holiday. It was a duty. He was there to wind up the estate of Isabel's deceased brother.
Securing her inheritance, which is a pretty significant sum, $40,000.
A huge sum for the time. And from Marshall's perspective, this trip was a massive inconvenience, a task he undertook purely for his betrothed.
So as he's driving down to Brighton to meet Isabel and her aunt, Mrs. Moore, what's his state of mind?
The sources say his heart was high. He's looking at the Sussex countryside, the blue, plum-like bloom of the September mists, and he sees it all as intensely lovely.
His mood is reflecting the landscape.
It is. His optimism is just brimming because he believes he's fulfilled his role perfectly. He's the conscientious, reliable, financially secure, devoted fiancé he has delivered.
And he's expecting, what, gratitude?
Hmm.
A simple, happy reunion.
I think that's exactly it. He expects simple, shared happiness. He's done the difficult, practical thing, and now he's ready for the reward.
But the emotional world that he is driving straight into is, well, it's anything but simple.
To put it mildly.
Let's talk about Isabel Lomant.
Yeah.
She's really the central figure here, and a word that comes to mind is prickly.
Oh, absolutely. She commands her friends. She's adored by her inner circle, but she's also described as quiet and rather ennuyée.
This deep sense of boredom or jadedness.
Yes, and almost aggressive boredom with the conventional world around her. And yet people are fascinated by her. They're drawn to the strength of her silence. It's clear she's a woman with, as the source puts it, untapped character resources.
And you can see this inner turmoil, can't you? It manifests physically.
Constantly. This nervous, compulsive habit she has of adjusting her hair or her skirt or a piece of jewelry.
And it's not vanity.
No, the sources are very explicit about that. It's a symptom of irritability. It's her internal world struggling against the constraints of her environment.
The irony being that some of her male admirers actually enjoyed this trait.
They did. They saw it as some sort of perverse, desirable feminine flaw, which she found, and I quote, disgusting.
So she's already at odds with how the world perceives her. She is trying to contain this huge character that society, and as we'll see, Marshall, only wants to admire on the surface.
And that's the collision course they're on. His well-intentioned return smacks right into her internal struggle, and it happens immediately over the money.
Right. The $40,000. She is absolutely insistent that she cannot go to Marshall with empty hands.
She even uses the words parasite or property to describe a married woman who is financially dependent.
Marshall, for his part, tries to be the modern man. He tries to be accommodating.
He does. He says there's cold horse sense in her wanting independence. He even acknowledges the rotten feeling of being tied to someone for cash.
He thinks he's being incredibly understanding here.
He does. But Isabel sees right through the kindness. She sees the power dynamic underneath, and this is where she shows this incredibly sharp, prickly insight she has.
What does she say?
She says her real fear is that his attitude, Marshall's fundamental character, will be unconsciously modified by his financial superiority.
So it's not about him lording it over her. It's more subtle than that.
Much more subtle. She isn't afraid of poverty. She's afraid of receiving kindness and chivalry that are born from his wealth. She calls it a lifelong humiliation.
Wow.
And then she delivers this absolutely devastating line.
I couldn't bear to ask for love and be fed with sympathy.
Exactly. I mean, what does that tell you about how she sees the world?
It tells me that, for Isabel, love isn't some gentle, comforting transaction. It's something absolute, a profound spiritual recognition.
Yes. She's defining love as something so pure that it just cannot coexist with sympathy, which she sees as a transaction rooted in pity and superiority.
So all the things Marshall values in himself, his conscientiousness, his devotion, his chivalry.
She perceives them all as a threat to her spiritual autonomy. She's terrified of being financially and therefore emotionally beholden to a man who, even through kindness, holds power over her very soul.
And then her aunt, Mrs. Moore, steps in, the voice of pure convention.
Oh, yes. Mrs. Moore is there to just smooth everything over with pragmatism. She dismisses Isabel's focus on love as an obsession.
She defends sympathy, doesn't she? She sees it as a practical necessity in a marriage.
She does. She contrasts it with what she calls pure, brutal egotism, which is her definition of love without sympathy.
So that moment just solidifies the massive gap between them.
Completely. Isabel is searching for something sublime, maybe even tragic, a pure connection. And Mrs. Moore and Marshall are perfectly happy with practicality, with good behavior, with a well-managed transaction.
The stage is absolutely set for disaster.
It really is.
So in an attempt to, I guess, change the subject or smooth things over, Marshall introduces a new topic, an acquaintance he made.
Yes, Mr. Judge, and this introduction leads them directly, almost immediately, to the physical catalyst for this entire drama, Runhill Court.
Marshall met this man, Henry Judge, on the ship coming back from America.
And on the surface, Judge seems completely respectable. A widower, a stockbroker, a member of the local antiquarian society. He's lived at the court for about 8 years.
Now, the details about Runhill Court itself are fascinating right from the start. There's this tension between its deep history and this layer of forced modernity.
There is. The name itself, Runhill. It supposedly comes from the Saxon rune hill.
Runes, as in engraved letters or symbols.
Exactly. Symbols used to ward off trolls or blending, which is a kind of supernatural replacement. It's a clear sign that the land itself, if not the house, has a history of metaphysical activity.
But Marshall is quick to downplay that, isn't he?
Oh, completely. He insists the house is thoroughly up to date. With electric lighting and all the modern conveniences, he's trying to ground this ancient, strange place in his own contemporary, measurable reality.
But the reality he's about to get pulled into is anything but contemporary. Isabel immediately senses there's more to this story.
She pushes him. She wants to know about the secret compact he's made with Judge.
Which came out of a conversation on the ship about the fourth dimension. Let's just pause on that phrase. In this context, that's not just a mathematical concept, is it?
Not at all. Back then, the fourth dimension was a popular way to talk about spiritual reality, about hidden planes of existence, alternate realities, even lost memory. It was a catch-all term for phenomena that existed outside of normal space and time.
And Judge's secret is centered precisely on that.
It is. He tells Marshall about this week-long experience, or delusion, depending on your point of view, where a flight of stairs just appeared in a blank wall of a room in the house, the East Room.
And he would climb these stairs every day.
Every day. He'd ascend them, but he would always return with no conscious memory of what happened at the top.
And it was his late wife who put a stop to it.
Correct. She was terrified by his behavior, so he had the room locked up, forbade anyone from entering. But now she's passed away, he feels free to investigate this bizarre thing again.
And Marshall's reaction is predictable.
Entirely. As the man from Lloyd's, he dismisses it immediately as a species of delusion. He only promised to investigate because, he couldn't just call this respectable older man a lunatic to his face.
For him, it's just an excuse for a run in the car.
Exactly. His involvement is purely skeptical. It's a social duty, nothing more.
So they make the drive to Runhill. And even the weather seems to be part of the story.
It does. It's described as hot, breathless, misty, a classic late September day. The house itself is isolated near Chanctonbury Ring, down these winding lanes. It feels removed from the world.
And their first impressions of the house are quite telling.
Very. Marshall is already finding fault. He thinks the hall is over-modernized, too spick and span for its history.
Isabel is even more critical. She calls the furniture a curiosity shop. and criticizes what she calls the frantic taste of the decor.
And she correctly guesses that it must have belonged to the late Mrs. Judge. She is already sensing the presence of this other woman in the house.
While Mrs. Moore, of course, has a much simpler take.
Oh, her wonderfully shallow, conventional judgment. She sees all the order and cleanliness and concludes that Judge must be a highly moral man.
That's the extent of her analysis.
That's it. But Isabel is already digging so much deeper. She's wondering about Mrs. Judge. Was she old? Was she young? She guesses young, which turns out to be right. She was 20 years younger than her husband. Isabel feels that she hasn't quite placed her in this house yet.
Her emotional antenna is just quivering. She's sensing a past conflict that this clean, modern veneer has tried to sweep under the rug.
And that sensitivity is immediately validated when they move upstairs.
In the corridor, they hear music.
The introduction to Beethoven's a major symphony, but it's the way it's being played that's so strange. It's not a performance. It's played tardily, with these long, reflective silences between phrases.
Like someone is thinking, not just playing.
Precisely. It suggests profound concentration, not musical enjoyment. And for Isabel, the effect is immediate.
She describes it as a disturbing excitement, the feeling of a curtain about to be drawn back.
And then when the music reaches that famous passage, the gigantic ascending scales, that huge musical buildup, she has this sudden, visceral mental image.
A vision of huge stairs going up.
Yes, and this is absolutely critical. She has zero conscious knowledge of the details of Judge's delusion about a staircase. Yet her intuition, triggered by this music, perfectly mirrors his hidden spiritual reality.
And Marshall.
Marshall is just stifling yawns. He's bored.
The contrast couldn't be more stark, could it?
No. One perceives an abstract mechanical process music being played. The other experiences an immediate spiritual revelation.
The music stops suddenly, and the musician appears.
Mr. Sharp, an American portrait painter in his mid-50s, intellectual-looking, with a florid face and a short red beard.
He becomes the first intermediary, doesn't he?
He does. He claims a connection to the house. His wife's great-grandfather was a former owner. And he says he was just working something out, some ideas that seemed to require music to illustrate them.
He's using music as a tool for investigation.
A metaphysical investigation. And Isabel challenges him on it directly. Her voice is described as softly metallic, and it catches his attention. She asks him why he's playing classical music in an empty house.
The house is already connecting them.
Through shared unseen knowledge, it's already started.
So after this incredibly intense musical encounter, the group tries to get back to something more normal. Conventional information gathering.
Right. They start questioning the caretaker, Mrs. Priday. And she begins to fill in some of the blanks about the late Mrs. Judge.
And the picture she paints is not entirely flattering.
No. She describes her as small, fair, soft-spoken, but with a weakish mouth, but the sharpest tongue that ever was.
So, a woman of contradictions.
A woman of contradictions who, it seems, actively suppressed her husband's inner life. Mrs. Priday says Judge, our respectable stockbroker, preferred his books, his long tramps, his antiquarian hobby.
Which his wife apparently hated like a swarm of earwigs.
Exactly. She craved society, parties, the conventional world. He craved solitude and history. The locked East Room. It's not just a room, it's the physical symbol of his marital, emotional, and spiritual confinement.
So finally, Marshall asks to actually see this room.
He does, but Mrs. Priday says it's locked, just as Judge said. So she guides them down this dark, turning corridor to what's described as a scrubbed, empty widening of the passage. This is the spot. This is where the staircase is meant to appear.
And this is where the second sign happens for Isabel. Unmistakable and physical.
Yes. She hears a sound that Marshall and Mrs. Moore cannot hear.
What is it?
A low buzz. She compares it to a telephone wire while you're waiting for a connection, or maybe an orchestra heard through a thick wall.
It's a technical sound, almost. Not a ghostly moan.
That's what's so crucial. It's not a haunting. It's a mechanism. It gives her the impression, she says, of a preparation for something. She finds it unmistakable and exciting. A reality is preparing to connect with her.
And Mrs. Moore's reaction is, again, predictable.
She calls it foolishness, pure and simple.
But Mrs. Priday gives it a different kind of validation.
She does. She confirms the room's deep history. She says in her grandfather's time it was known as the Elves' Tower, and maybe even before that, Ulf's Tower. And she hints that her husband, the gardener, knows some of the house's funny stories.
So you have this dual confirmation. Isabel's spiritual or sensory experience, the buzz, and the historical, folkloric evidence from Mrs. Priday.
And that just shatters the idea that this is all in Isabel's head. She is now desperate for more information for confirmation, and she knows with absolute certainty that Marshall cannot provide it.
So she seeks out the one person who might be able to. Sheriff.
Immediately, and she's masterful in how she does it. She asks Marshall to change seats with her at dinner, a small, seemingly innocent request, just so she can arrange a secret meeting with Sheriff.
A rendezvous with the pier turnstiles before he catches his train to Italy.
Think about that. She is actively prioritizing the mysterious world of this house over the presence of her own fiancé.
She's already choosing a side.
She absolutely is.
So they have their secret meeting. What does Sheriff tell her?
He provides the third piece of physical proof. He tells her about his own experience outside that locked room. He describes a sudden, very short-lived, but delirious smell.
A smell.
Yes, the epitome of a spring day in the woods, he says, but double distilled, like a powerful new perfume. It's this vibrant, unnatural scent of life coming from behind the door.
And his conclusion from this?
He says it emphatically. The house is alive.
Isabel then decides to test him, doesn't she? To see how much their experiences overlap.
She does. She asks him flat out if his choice of music, the Beethoven, was connected to the idea of a mysterious, gigantic staircase.
And what does he say?
He denies it. He has no idea what she's talking about. And this confirms for her that her knowledge of Judge's specific delusion is unique. It's not something Sheriff shares.
So he gives her another piece of the puzzle instead. The legend.
The fable of Ulf's Tower. He tells her the story that Ulf, the original builder, constructed the house on haunted land, Rune Hill, inhabited by trolls.
And one day,
Ulf in the top rooms of the East Tower just vanished.
Yeah.
Clean carried off by the trolls,
Yeah.
as the story goes.
So this isn't just a haunting, it's a story of ancient spiritual theft, of temporal displacement.
Exactly. And now Isabel is ready to confess, to tell him how deeply this is affecting her.
This is the first time she's really articulated it to anyone, isn't it?
It is. She tells Sheriff that the weird sound, that buzz, struck a deep string in her heart. That it created this feeling she calls a spiritual passion, which is mixed with sickness and despair, but is ultimately dominated by delight.
Spiritual passion, that's
Yeah.
the very thing she accused Marshall's world of lacking.
Precisely. This is the moment she names her true need, the thing she's been searching for. And Sheriff, he recognizes the danger immediately.
He gives her that stark, prophetic warning.
Do nothing and ask no questions.
It's too late, isn't it?
Oh, it's far too late. Because for the first time, Isabel feels seen. She feels that Sheriff is the first person ever to credit her with having exceptional feelings.
Her perverse and prickly nature has finally been validated. It's not a flaw, it's a form of spiritual sensitivity.
And she knows she can't back away now. The conventional world has failed to recognize her soul, and this unconventional world has just claimed it.
So this leads us to the second visit to Run Hill. This is on Sunday morning.
Right. Marshall and Isabel return, but this time they're accompanied by Priday, the head gardener. And his presence is really important.
Why is that?
Because he's the conduit to the deep local knowledge of the place. Generations of his family have worked this land. He's not an outsider like Marshall.
And he confirms the name, Elves Tower.
He does. And then he gives Marshall this chilling, very explicit warning. He says gentlemen can go anywhere and see or hear nothing, but for young female nerves, the rules are different.
A funny journey, he calls it.
A funny journey. And he says that those who start one can't always come back when they like.
He's confirming that the house isn't just a place. It's a mechanism, and it could be a trap.
Especially for someone sensitive enough to actually experience it.
And Isabel hears this warning, and she uses it.
She weaponizes it. She suddenly feigns illness, a terrible headache. She claims she's physically incapable of moving.
This is a calculated deception.
Absolutely. It's a deliberate lie to ensure that she gets what she needs most, solitude in that house. Marshall, of course, is concerned, but he reluctantly agrees to go up with Priday.
And as soon as she's alone, she acts.
With immediate determination. She finds a staircase in the hall that she hadn't noticed before.
And the description of it is very specific.
It is. Dark, shining wood, 17 steps, no handrail, and enclosed by walls on both sides. And she's surprised by how solid and tangible it feels.
It's too real to be supernatural.
Yes, which suggests this isn't a ghost staircase. This is a physical doorway to an alternate or maybe a shifted reality.
So she ascends. What does she find at the top?
An antechamber with 3 doors facing her. And she has this moment of genuine fear, of nervous embarrassment. She wonders if these doors contain undesirable mysteries. She almost retreats.
But she doesn't.
No, she's driven by whim and by this deep defiance that is her true self. She chooses the door on the left,
And what's inside?
a room that is dominated by a long mirror. And this scene, I think, is the psychological core of this whole section.
She's not looking at her reflection out of vanity.
Not at all. It's an act of deep examination. She is looking at the self that the house has revealed to her.
And what does she see?
She sees a reflection that possesses a strong, terrible sweetness and intensity of character. And she realizes, in that moment, that a woman with this kind of depth has to accept an uncommon and possibly fearful destiny.
This is her self-recognition, her commitment to this new path.
It's the moment she accepts the passion over the prudence that Marshall represents.
But the conventional world tries to pull her back. Even then.
Just for a second, she hears Marshall's muffled voice calling her name from far away. He's coming back. So she acts quickly, pulls aside some heavy red drapery, and finds another doorway.
With another staircase leading down.
And crucially, she notes that this second staircase is identical to the one she just came up. She descends, and she emerges back in the main hall near the fireplace.
The house is playing a spatial trick on her.
It is an ascent and a descent that bring you right back to where you started. But it's not just a spatial trick.
No. It's tied to a profound cognitive trick.
The instant her foot touches the hall floor, the memory is gone.
Every detail of her little adventure flashed out of her mind, like the snapping of a cord.
Complete physiological memory loss. The house protects its own secrets by erasing the conscious mind of anyone who experiences them upon their return to the normal world.
But the experience was real,
Yeah.
and the change in her is observable.
It is. Friday, the gardener, sees it instantly. He tells her she looks different. He says, "I see a difference in you since 40 minutes ago."
The spiritual transformation is literally visible on her face.
But only to those who are attuned to it. Isabel herself checks her reflection in a silver mirror and sees no special change. And Marshall, when he returns, he just notices that she looks a bit washed out.
The house has changed her. It has marked her.
It has, and made that mark visible only to those who understand its power.
And the effects of this bizarre experience, they immediately start to poison her relationship with the conventional world.
Right away. On Tuesday, Isabel meets Judge for the first time socially in the hotel lounge in Brighton.
And he's not what you might expect from the description.
No, he's younger than his reported 58 years. He's described as clean-looking, wiry, dignified. His face shows power and resolution.
And the connection between them is immediate.
It's electric. The source says Judge colored faintly when their eyes met, and Isabel just smiled and looked away. It's this pure, emotional exchange that just completely bypasses all the usual formalities.
He immediately brings up the house.
He does. He hints about the prohibited parts and invites her to come back. And Isabel, who is desperate to return but has to keep up appearances, arranges to bring her married friend, Blanche Stokes, as a chaperone.
Even though Judge is clearly drawn to her, he still tries to be prudent.
He does. He asks her if she's marrying Marshall Stokes. Isabel confirms it, coloring nervously, and he offers these rather flat congratulations.
And her response is so telling.
It's incredible. She says, "My only fear is that I may not make as admirable a wife."
She is actively questioning her own suitability for the very role Marshall is offering her.
Because she already knows. The woman she saw in the mirror in that room has a fearful destiny, and that destiny does not align with being an admirable, conventional wife.
This dynamic then deepens at a dinner party on Friday.
Yes. You have all the key players there. Judge, Mrs. Moore, Marshall, Isabel, and also Roger and Blanche Stokes.
Roger is Marshall's brother. Who is he?
He's the self-appointed intellectual of the group. He plays the role of Mephistopheles, the charming cynic who stands on the sidelines and observes everyone's flaws.
And during this dinner, the house intrudes again. Through music.
It does.
Yeah.
Marshall makes a mistake. He confuses the music Sherp was playing Beethoven's Seventh with Mendelssohn.
A small thing, but it shows his lack of artistic or emotional depth.
Exactly. And Isabel corrects him. And this correction draws Judge into a debate with her about the nature of female character.
He tries to be gallant, doesn't he?
He does. He makes this conventional argument that men are the best observers of women because they look for noble qualities. But Isabel just rejects this. She sees it as mere chivalry, not honest observation.
And from there, the conversation spirals into the real topic, the heart of the conflict.
Love and passion. Judge defines genuine love as something that's difficult to simulate, but Isabel takes it to a whole other level.
She speaks to him in a low voice, almost a private conversation in a crowded room.
And she talks about spiritual passion. She calls it a tragic element that only comes to a few people.
And then she makes this incredible confession to him.
She says that until she has experienced this feeling for herself, she cannot feel safe. She's afraid that someone else may turn up, who will prove to her how mistakenly she's been living.
She is essentially telling Judge, a man she barely knows, that her engagement to Marshall is a mistake and that she feels spiritually incomplete.
It's an astonishing moment, and Judge, who clearly recognizes exactly what she's talking about, he tries to warn her off.
From the perspective of an older, more prudent man.
Yes, he tells her that feelings like that are rare and painful, and that the wisest course is not to think about such things. He sees the danger because he has already felt the house's power.
But the connection between them is now completely irrevocably forged.
It is, and the dinner party ends with an arrangement for a second group visit, a picnic at Run Hill on Monday.
And Marshall agrees to be left out of this. He has to be back in London.
Which is very convenient for Isabel. She also makes sure to secure Judge's address in Worthing the Metropole for, as she says, in case I ever need it.
A clear signal that she intends to pursue this connection, with or without a group.
Absolutely. And Judge, for his part, maintains his own conventional control. He's very careful not to discuss the sale of the house to Mrs. Moore in front of everyone else. He's still playing by the rules, even as this immense, unconventional force is pulling him in.
So Monday arrives, the picnic, the mood is strange.
It is. You have Roger drinking and joking, keeping things light on the surface. But Isabel is described as being internally frantic. She's preoccupied, she develops a headache, and she's constantly checking her watch.
She's focused on the time.
She is. The external world is just chatter to her. Her internal clock is ticking down towards 2:00 p.m.
As she and Judge are walking back towards the house, she pests him, doesn't she?
She does. She muses aloud, "Perhaps it's your friendship I want and not your house."
And his reaction.
It's dark and intense.
Absolutely.
It's a clear sign that his feelings for her are far, far deeper than conventional friendship. And then, shortly after that, he grants Mrs. Moore permission to buy Run Hill Court at an agreed figure.
He's giving up the house.
He's surrendering the material possession. He's removing the conventional obstacle between them because he recognizes that the house is much more than just a piece of property. It's the vessel for their connection.
Marshall's friends leave. Judge, Blanche, and Roger go on a tour of the house.
And Isabel, again, feigns a headache. She stays behind in the hall and she lights a cigarette. A physical sign of her nervous resolve and determination.
And she tries to remember her first solo visit.
Desperately. She cycles through every rational explanation she can think of. Hypnosis, hallucination, a dream, but none of it fits. She feels perfectly sane, but the memory is just a complete blank.
And then at 2:45 p.m.,
she acts. She walks towards the staircase as in a dream. This is her second intentional ascent into the house's other reality.
And halfway up the stairs, the mechanism triggers.
Her memory comes flooding back, startling clarity. She recalls every single detail of her first meeting with Judge in that other room, the unseemly anxiety to lay aside all deception, the feeling of mutual approval, even the detail of giving him a scarf as a token.
But the memory returns with a layer of conventional judgment, doesn't it?
It does. Her conscious mind, now aware, sees her past actions as something shameless and dreadful. Yet at the same time, she acknowledges that they came from a place of genuine and unfeigned emotion.
She concludes it was fated, not accidental.
Exactly. Her rational mind resolves to end this disagreeable intimacy, but her deeper spiritual nature just keeps pulling her forward up the stairs.
She enters the middle door, the second chamber.
And Judge is already there, waiting for her.
She asks him how he got there.
And he says he came up from the hall, just as she did. They confirm the house's central baffling paradox. This irresistible attraction to the stairs, followed by total memory loss upon descent.
These rooms are designed for a purpose.
They are. They facilitate this intense, unmasked intimacy and then provide a conventional reset. They protect their occupants from the consequences of their true feelings back in the real world.
And in this heightened reality, Judge's guard is completely down.
He drops all pretense. He confesses he felt like a lost man before he met her, that she's inspired him to a new life. He tells her he's willing to pay higher prices than just the house.
And Isabel gives him another physical token.
The silk scarf she's wearing. But she's very specific. She says she gives nothing but respect and kindness.
He accepts it reverently.
Yes, promising to guard it as a precious of secrets. It's their second spiritual pledge, completely nonverbal, existing entirely outside the real-world roles of fiancé and stockbroker,
They realize what this chamber allows them to do.
to drop the mask of convention, to achieve what they call a poignant sense of actuality. And Judge admits that these first two rooms are just lobbies.
The real experience lies behind the third door.
The ultimate experience. And they make a pact to enter that third room together when they get the chance. They acknowledge the house's power, that even though their minds will forget, their hearts, which have once met, can never be strangers.
And the physics of it all remain completely baffling.
He came from above, she came from below, yet they met on the same floor after ascending just one story. The house is fundamentally rewriting the laws of space, time, and consciousness for them.
But the moment they step back into the conventional world, the disaster begins.
Immediately. Judge is back in the hall, and he's startled to find Isabel's silk scarf in his own pocket. He has absolutely no idea how it got there. His memory is wiped clean.
And Isabel, whose memory is also gone, is searching the picnic grounds for that same scarf.
The conventional world demands an explanation for this physical object, and neither of them has one.
And that's when Blanche Stokes, Marshall's sister-in-law, steps in.
She becomes the agent of conventional morality. She saw Judge with the scarf. She immediately confronts Isabel, accusing her of being a manipulative flirt, of having a secret relationship.
And she urges her to break the engagement with Marshall.
Right. And Isabel, who is sincerely bewildered, cannot offer any credible denial because she has no memory. She spends a sleepless night torturing herself over this awful, unthinkable hypothesis that she somehow personally gave her scarf to Judge.
She's desperate for answers.
So she lies to her aunt, and the next day, Tuesday, she takes the train to Worthing to meet Judge at the Metropole. She needs a confrontation.
She asks him directly about the stairs, about their meeting.
But Judge, now firmly back in the real world, retreats completely into prudence, into protecting her reputation. He insists they are just good friends and nothing more.
He refuses to confess his real feelings.
He won't. He rationalizes it by saying that as an older man, he daren't imitate the rashness of a younger one. He is putting her social standing above their shared hidden reality.
Isabel argues with him, saying his feelings are her property, that she has a right to know, but he won't budge.
No. Instead, he suggests a very practical, conventional plan to solve the mystery of the scarf. He'll go back to the East Room that afternoon and take notes to record the facts.
And then their very tense conversation is interrupted.
By a woman named Mrs. Richborough, an elegantly dressed widow, and the description of her is key. She has a studied grace, a theatrical way of speaking, and a hard and insolent eye.
She exudes social manipulation.
She does, and she claims to be a messenger for Judge, who she says is ill, and she delivers a letter to Isabel.
The situation just devolves from there into this bizarre social intrigue.
It does. At lunch, they realize that Mrs. Richborough has completely engineered her own presence. She thought Judge was asking her to chaperone Isabel, while Judge thought Isabel was bringing her. Judge is just stunned by what he calls this diabolical plot.
So later, back at the house, while Judge and Mrs. Richborough are distracted, Isabel slips away.
She intentionally gets lost in the servants' corridors to achieve her real goal, getting back to the other room.
And once again, on that mysterious staircase, her memory returns.
But this time, it's different. It now includes the knowledge of Judge's intense feelings for her, the ones he confessed in Worthing but then denied.
And her reaction is still one of conflict. She sees their intimacy as irreconcilable with her true character, shameless and dreadful.
Yes, but this time, she resolves not to break the spiritual bond, but to find a way to contain it. So she enters the second chamber, and Judge is already there.
They actually start discussing a way to prevent this from happening again, writing a note to themselves.
A very practical solution to a supernatural problem. And as they talk, Isabel notices that Judge looks extraordinarily young, and he tells her she looks more wonderful.
The room is stripping away their conventional ages, their identities.
It is. And then catastrophe arrives.
Mrs. Richborough, she's followed them.
She bursts into the room, startling Isabel into a scream, and she demands to know, where are we and what does it all mean?
She immediately understands the situation and turns it into blackmail.
Instantly. When she learns Isabel still intends to marry Marshall, she threatens her. She claims Isabel is really planning to marry Judge, and failing that, she will dishonor me.
And Judge, faced with this direct threat to Isabel's reputation, he makes the ultimate sacrifice.
He suggests marrying Mrs. Richborough himself. To ensure her silence, to solve other difficulties, he's willing to accept a living death for Isabel's sake.
Isabel calls it absolute madness.
She's completely frustrated. She's had enough of his prudence, his morality, his constant focus on convention over their shared passion. She declares her engagement to Marshall has been a ghastly mistake and that she has to be loyal to her own nature.
She insists they enter the third room now.
And Judge finally agrees. He recognizes that they are both victims of the house's irresistible power.
So they enter the third door, and what they find is impossible.
It is. They're hit by a sudden and unanticipated flood of brilliant sunshine, and when they look out, they see a landscape that is impossible for October in Sussex. Green forests, trees with white blossoms.
And here, cuckoo.
Eternal spring. A perfect, timeless reality that exists completely outside the bounds of the normal world.
And on the hillside, outside the window, they see the musician.
Yes, Mr. Sheriff, but now he's dressed in archaic, brightly colored garments, and he's playing a fiddle-shaped instrument. In this reality, Isabel feels tortured, yet not unhappy. She feels restored to the complex state of youth.
And she demands that Judge accept her full love.
No more prudence. And he finally does. He sets his jaw hard, accepts it in deep humility, and dedicates his life to her service.
And in the middle of all this, Mrs. Richborough collapses.
And then Isabel finds something on the floor of this impossible room. Her engagement ring. The one she was wearing at lunch.
The material proof.
The material proof that their spiritual passion has literally, physically severed her material bond to Marshall.
Judge helps the semi-conscious Mrs. Richborough downstairs.
And Isabel makes another discovery. The envelope Mrs. Richborough delivered earlier has musical notes scribbled on it. Isabel whistles the tune, and the distant instrument of the musician on the hill repeats the ending.
Mrs. Richborough, as she's recovering, insists they have to come back tomorrow.
Yes. She says Isabel's whole future happiness may be involved.
This all leads to the final tragic journey. The next morning, Wednesday.
Isabel, exhausted, travels to Worthing for the meeting they arranged.
She goes to the Metropole Hotel.
Only to be told by the clerk that Mrs. Richborough was taken suddenly ill and died the previous night at 9:15 p.m.
Just hours after leaving Runhill Court.
The conventional world has excised the blackmailer, but the reality of the house is not finished.
Isabel is given a letter from Judge.
He's already fled to London. He cites the sad circumstances and says they need a cool weighing of the whole situation. He suggests they wait a considerable time before meeting again.
The ultimate conventional retreat.
And Isabel's reaction is a mixture of rising blood, laughter, and pure rage.
But the house, as you said, is not done with them.
Not even close. Isabel sees an elegantly dressed lady getting into a car outside the hotel, telling the chauffeur to go to Runhill Court.
And the hotel porter identifies this woman as Lady Brooke.
And Isabel realizes this woman is either Mrs. Richborough herself or her identical twin sister. The antagonistic force has returned despite the death certificate.
So Isabel follows her.
She does. She gets to the house, and near it, she sees Lady Brooke standing erect and still with a white, smiling face under a veil. The exact description of Mrs. Richborough just hours after she was reported dead.
And then a heavy pulsing sound affects Isabel's head.
It starts, then it stops abruptly, and Judge appears. He's confused, he's not wearing a hat. He confirms he was just in the third room, he was playing the musician's instrument, and he could feel Isabel's presence there with him.
Isabel turns around.
And the eternal spring landscape is there again. Behind her, her memory comes flooding back. All of it, all 3 visits. She realizes that she and Henry belonged to each other and that their ignorance and his prudence had almost wrecked everything.
But the memory is fleeting.
It's gone in an instant. The mist returns. She loses the memory of the musician, of the love confession, and she reverts fiercely to her conventional self, telling Judge to address her with courtesy and return to London. She's trying to protect her sanity.
And then comes the final catastrophe. The music.
A sound returns, but now it's low, fierce, passionate, exactly resembling a deep, forced human cry of love pain.
She sees Judge and the musician on the hillside facing each other.
And the musician violently jerks his bow across the instrument, the landscape closes in, and Isabel faints.
This profound spiritual violence, this final cry, is the last thing she experiences.
It is, but in the conventional world, the disaster is still unfolding. On that very same day, Marshall, back in London, receives a letter.
An anonymous typewritten letter postmarked Worthing.
And it accuses Isabel of visiting Runhill Court for the 3rd time that week. It suggests he should check if she's there, and it mentions rooms that are hard to discover.
Marshall's nature is revealed here. He can't just ignore a factual charge.
No. His mind goes immediately to infidelity, to social impropriety, so he drives down to Runhill. He meticulously searches Judge's empty car for anything compromising and, of course, finds nothing.
He goes into the house.
He goes up to the East Room, finds the door unlocked, and he finds Judge, lying half-dressed near the mirror.
He's dead.
Dead. The cause is given as apoplexy, a massive stroke triggered by the intense emotional and spiritual exertion of that final scene in the third chamber.
Marshall then finds Isabel, who has fainted nearby.
He shows her the anonymous letter, and she admits she knows who wrote it and that the charge was written in good faith. She meant to be there.
Marshall, ever the practical man, realizes she has to flee immediately to avoid being caught up in the inquest.
And he tells her that because of her honesty, he cannot go with her. He cannot be associated with the scandal.
Isabel swears she doesn't know who she's seen or what happened because she fainted. Marshall can't even finish asking her why she wanted to be with Judge.
He just retreats. He goes back to the hotel, breaks off the engagement with Mrs. Moore by mutual agreement, and tells her to get the explanations from Isabel.
And that's almost the end of it. 6 months later, March.
The engagement is definitively over. Marshall is still visiting his sister-in-law, Blanche. And Blanche asks Isabel how she should behave towards him.
And Isabel's reply is just chilling.
It's so cold and so wounded. She says, if Marshall is able to endure my society, I shall certainly be able to endure his.
And we're told that Marshall colors violently when he reads that.
Which shows that even after 6 months, the wound is still raw, still completely unresolved. The house, Ulf's Tower, it literally opened a door to the fourth dimension for Isabel. It was a mirror that showed her true, passionate nature.
And Marshall, the man of Lloyd's, the man of measurable risk, could never, ever perceive that reality.
All he was left with was the visible debris, a broken engagement and a dead rival.
I think the core of this whole account really comes down to the price you pay for this kind of spiritual awakening.
It does. Judge pursued that tragic, sublime passion that Isabel craved. He accepted the full love in that other reality, and moments later, he was dead. His fate suggests that accessing that pure, timeless world is just violently incompatible with our conventional one.
And what about Isabel?
She's the real tragedy in a way. She lost her memory. She was returned to the world of convention, haunted only by the brief knowledge that she was once this other woman.
So the question for you to think about is, was Judge's death an inevitable consequence of seeking that spiritual passion? Or was it, in a way, a final escape from the living death of prudence he almost chose?
And for Isabel, who heard Sheriff's warning right at the start, do nothing, and ask no questions, the tragedy is that her curiosity, even though it was driven by this genuine spiritual need, it resulted in permanent suffering. It resulted in memory loss and a life lived knowing that she once glimpsed a fearful, beautiful destiny and then had it snatched away. What knowledge is truly worth that price?